Okay, well, good morning.
Good morning.
Guess everybody else is running a little behind this morning.
I'm just glad it's not me today. It
Yeah.
has been a week.
Yeah. You're up in Northeast Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, I'm near Oologah.
Okay, very nice. Are you on a piece of land, a farm, or something?
Yeah, we own a 400-acre farm.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Cool. Do you have, I assume you have animals on the farm?
hmm
Do you have
Yep, we
goats?
have no goats. They're
No
really
goats?
destructive.
Oh,
We
yes.
we have a donkey, we have cattle, I have chickens, dogs, cats, you name it. We've had an ostrich before.
Oh, wow.
Don't don't currently have one, but
Yeah,
yeah,
very
the
cool.
normal.
Yeah.
But we our crop is pecans. So
Oh, yeah.
most of our most of our property is pecan grove where there's tons of trees and that's our
Yeah.
winter crop.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. My coworker has a bunch of goats. She lives out in Norman.
hmm
And my wife and I went over there before, and the goats, they're fun, but yeah, like you said, destructive. But my wife
They'll
wants to
eat
get one of the
anything.
like, yes, yes. Yeah, my wife wants to get one of the little ones, like the little
hmm
goat. And I'm like, I don't think our dog would like it very much, but yeah,
They're a lot of fun, but I don't think my bulldogs would like it.
yeah, yeah, indeed. Cool. Hey, Laura.
Hello. Sorry, I'm a couple of
Good
minutes
morning.
late.
Okay, we were talking about farming and goats and lack thereof.
Oh, fun.
What's up, Wayne?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. All right. I think this is our crew for today. Um, okay. So heads up next week. It's gonna be all about building. So we're basically gonna start from scratch Wednesday and Saturday, and you are just gonna build this whole thing by yourself. So too easy, right? You can do it. We'll be here to help. But you'll have, what we've built so far is kind of a template that you can use, but obviously try not to just copy it. Like you want to code it out and understand the logic and all that stuff. So, but today we are going to finish a couple features once I find my thing here. Here it is. Um, we're going to make the drop downs dynamic, the category thing. So we're not going to hard code that drop down. We are going to introduce local storage. So that way it actually keeps track of our stuff. We're going to learn how to delete and modify expenses as well. So that's our goal for today. But first, let's go over the code. Oh, let me share my screen. That'd be helpful. Oops, not that. Right here. Share my screen. Okay. Let's see the debug and all that good stuff. Let me get to my class here. Oh, did y'all have any questions before I get too far? No burning,
No,
nothing. Okay,
all
cool.
right.
Cool. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna slide you over here. Okay, so for our debug, let's throw this in code over here. I'm gonna make, what's this? I'm just gonna make a new, there we go, today.js. What's this? Yeah, we'll get rid of this. We don't need that. Okay. So the question was, what does this output and how do you fix it? So if we get our, oh, that's Claude. Get out here, Claude. Okay. Um, did you remember how to run a script in your terminal?
Node.js.
Yep. Yep. So just node and then the name of the file. So today.js. Cool. So it is console logging 1, 2, 3, 4. And it looks like what it's trying to do. Well, and you want to take it? Do you know what it's doing, what it's trying to do?
It looks like it's trying to put 4 at the very end of it, push it to the end.
Okay. So yeah, so for doubled, so this variable, it's pushing 4 onto it. But when we log numbers, which is this guy, where that 4 is being put onto numbers for some reason, right? So it should just be on the doubled, but it's being put on the numbers one, right? So, and I don't know if I mentioned this specifically, but there's 2 ways that variables are referenced. So, what's the word? Static, maybe static. No, primitive, sorry. Primitive variables like strings, numbers, booleans, those are referenced by value. So when you console log like a number or a string variable, you're getting like that value, right? So if you mess with it, like that value is going to be updated or whatever. Arrays and objects are referenced by, or are, sorry, it's a weird word, are by reference, not by value. So what we're looking at here is not the actual like place in the data or in the machine where it is, right? It's very computer sciencey, but we're not actually making changes to this exact thing like we would a string. It's more like we're referencing it in the memory somewhere. Okay, so that's a computer science question if anybody ever asks you. Primitives are referenced by value. The others are referenced or are just referenced by, yeah. So don't worry about that. The point being that numbers is being affected, even though we wanted it on doubles, right? So it's affecting numbers as well. So let's see if we console.log doubled instead, or not instead, but also let's see what this does. Numbers. Okay, so it did affect both of them, right? So the question is, if we wanted it, I assume that the question is, if we just wanted it to affect doubled, how would we do that? That's a good question. So if we made, I think if we would have to, would we have to make a new one? Let's see if we did doubled. Well, no, because I already did that. That's a tricky question. Let's ask our buddy Claude. Why do we get 1, 2, 3, 4 when console logging numbers? Okay, so this is what I was trying to explain in not a very good way. Whenever we just take that initial array and we reassign it to a new variable, it doesn't copy the array. It just references, it copies the reference to it. So basically, if you think about like in memory, there's a place that stores the value, right? That actual array 1, 2, 3, 4. When we make a variable pointing at that value, we're just kind of getting a copy of it. We're just referencing it. We're not actually affecting the actual data like on the machine.
Yeah.
And so it says here, both of the variables point to the same array in memory. So mutating one points to both, right? So probably haven't seen this ... syntax before, but what this does is it says basically we want to take whatever this is and make a brand new copy of it. So then we actually have the thing instead of the reference of the thing. Okay. When you get into React with Derek, this will matter a lot more than what we're doing now because you'll be changing the state of stuff and then you'll be like, oh, that didn't work. So you'll have to kind of do this a lot. There's another way to do this, and it looks like this. It's JSON dot parse JSON dot stringify like this, and you put your variable in here. So variable. And what this does is it basically takes that variable, makes it a string, parses it out as JSON, which creates a brand new copy of it. So it's the exact same thing as basically doing this dot 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 thing. Okay. I know that's crazy weird and kind of like way out there, but you will see it as we get deeper into this. But hopefully not today. So that should fix it though. So if we give this numbers, the dot dot dot, 3 dots, then we run it. So then numbers has just the 1, 2, 3. So we're only then affecting this new variable we made. Okay. Good. Clear as mud. Good. All right. Let's see what else we got. Barn loop set timeout. Okay. All right. So this one, let's see. Where'd my VS Code go? Nope. Right here, main. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we're looping through and we're seeing 3, 3, 3, right? So if you remember with for loops, this is where we're starting, right? The index of 0. So we're starting at the beginning of the array. This would be our array, and this, or the 3 would be our array. So that's how, like, that's the condition in which we're going to keep going, right? So as long as I is less than 3, okay? But this is where you'd put in, if you had an array you were looping through, you'd put in like whatever array dot length is less than 3 or whatever. We'll get into more for loops too. And then we're going to iterate it one at a time, right? I++. So we're calling a set timeout function, which this just says, hey, do this thing inside after this much has passed, this much time, right? So this is 100 milliseconds. So it should, if we count it, is very quick. So let me add another 0 here. So this will be like a whole second. So you see there's a delay there, and then it went. So what it's doing is it's saying, it's on our for loop. It's going, okay, I'm coming in here. Oh, first thing I see, I got to set timeout. So I got to wait for 1 whole second, 1,000 milliseconds, right? And then do whatever's inside of here. So then I'm going to log I each time. I think the problem that they're talking about is that it doesn't time out in between each one. As you can see, it stalls, but then it throws all 3 at the same time. So how would we make it so it would time out each time is what I think it wants us to do. This is another great question.
When you put it inside the function, so inside the curly bracket,
Which part?
the delay.
This here?
Yeah.
Oh, no. So set time, that's how it works. So you can see it gives you the handler, so whatever you're going to do, and then the timeout. So the timeout's on the outside because it's this callback function basically. So this is the function we're going to tell it to do, and then this is what it's going to do. So the set timeout function takes 2 parameters, the handler, which is that function inside, and then the timeout. So if you think about when we call a function like this, timeout, and then we're going to pass it 2 parameters or 2 arguments. The first one is just that function. I'm just going to write function. And then the second one is the time. So that's what we're seeing here. If I put it on one line, it might make more sense. Okay, so this function is that first part right there, and then this time is that second part there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Okay. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so we want it to delay between each timeout. So if this is in the 4, so we're hitting there each time, then it's just doing that. I don't know. Let's ask our buddy Claude again.
Do we need to change the VAR in the first line to be let instead?
No, so in a for loop, it doesn't really matter because we're not changing. So the I is just incrementing up. So it's not like in a global scope or anything. It doesn't matter. It's just part of the for loop. But it's good.
Okay,
It's
thank
good.
you.
Good to know not to use var. You can change it to let. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah. All right. Let's see. Why does this print console log without the delay after the initial delay? Okay. It's done with the time the callback is done. Delays don't stack. All 3 are registered simultaneously. Oh, you might be right. That's what it says. How about that? Okay, so we got to put a let. Oops. Nope. Oh, okay. So it was just logging 333 each time. So this set timeout was triggered, um, but it was only logging the last I, right? I 333 instead of 012. So like Claude said here, the var is function scoped, so it's in the function, right? So the whole thing. And then by the time the callback fires, the loop is done, and I is already 3. So when you change it to let creates a new binding per iteration. So yeah. Huh. Very interesting. Okay, does that make sense, sort of, kind of? The bottom line, use let, like Elizabeth said. Don't use var. Cool. All right, cool. Let's see what other ones we got. May skip some of these. Okay, this is a good one. We'll do this one. Okay. All right, so we got an error, right? As you can see, we have so our key is first hyphen name, and our value is John, right? So this is an object. And then we're trying to log user dot first name, but it's given us this error saying that name is not defined. So with an object, you can use dot notation unless there's a space, which hopefully there's never a space, but sometimes there's a space in your keys, or a hyphen. So I believe in order to fix this, we have to use bracket notation. So sort of like it's an array, but it's not. You can use brackets as strings for an object. And so that should, yeah, so that works. So anytime, like if it was together, like if it was just first name without anything, then this would have worked fine as dot notation. Let me just duplicate that. So if we just, at this point, if we did for user dot first name, like we're used to doing with the dot notation, right? Then this is going to be fine, and it's going to give us John, right? But again, if there's a space or any sort of symbol in between, we're going to need to use it like this with our bracket notation. And so that's just brackets and then just quotes for a string. And so if this was like first name with a space, then this would work as well if we did first name with a space like that. But this is also why it's pretty important to try to never have spaces or anything weird in between. So use either camel case or something like that. There are times that you can't avoid it, especially if you're like bringing in an API or something like the Poke API I showed you guys. Some of those names might have spaces in them. They're the keys for the objects. Yeah, so what that was doing on that one. Cool. Make sense?
Mhm.
Cool. All right. Okay, we'll skip that for now. Okay, let's see what is on the read the code real quick. Right here. Oh, this is what oh, did I click on the wrong one? Oh, that's week 2. Week 3. Okay. All right, so this one, loop behavior. So how many times does the loop run? Yeah, so how many times would this loop run, do you think? Oh, don't look here. Don't look below. I'm covering it up on my screen. You can't see it, but the answers are there. Well, let me go this way. Okay. Did you already read it?
It's 3, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because 0, 1, 2, and then
Perfect.
I guess I was going between 3 and 4.
Mhm. Yeah. So since it's I less than 3, that means we're not going to go to 3, right? We're going to go less than 3. So yeah, 0, 1, 2. Perfect. And that's also why a lot of times we'll do like index if it's an array, like if it's like array dot length like -1 if we want to like not include the last one for whatever reason. But yeah, so that is pretty tricky sometimes. You got to think, okay, how much am I including? Do I need, equal less than or equal to, or do I just need the less than? So yeah, we're good. Yep. Um, okay, we'll jump down here. I don't know if we talked much about object mutation, but this is basically how you can update your objects. So I hit the right button. Okay. Um, clear, clear. So if you have an object, so name Alice, and you want to update some of it, you can use that dot notation like we saw before. So update dot age. So you're updating this value. You could do update dot name. If you wanted to add a new value to it, you could do, let me go here. So person is our object, right? So, oh, okay. So they're saving the new object. This is like what we saw earlier with the reference thing. So this is probably going to put 25. Nope, put 26. Okay, so it did update that guy. But if we wanted to say we wanted to add to the person object, you could do person dot like whatever you wanted, like gender equals male. And then if you console logged person, then you see now we have a gender key value pair there. So this is how you can kind of build up that object, which we're going to see today in our like building out of our stuff. So, cool. All right. Let's see, last one here. We talked about array methods last time, pop and push. Pop takes it off the back, pushes it onto the back, and then shift and unshift do the opposite, but for the front. There's a bunch more that we'll get into, like filter and some more advanced ones. There's a couple different types of for loops. We've only just been using the basic for loop. We'll use a different one today, the for each loop, but there is also for of and for in, and they all do very similar things. You just wouldn't have like they do have an index position that you can access, but you don't actually put it in to the for loop. So these would just basically say you have an array. So for every item in the array, item is going to be that the thing in that index position, right? So if we console logged item, if our array was like ABC, it would console log A, B, and then C, right? Okay, and C says for of does the values, for in does the actual indices. So a lot of times, just whichever one you want to use is probably fine. For a traditional for loop is fine as well. And we'll get into they're called higher order functions where they're actually kind of like built right into the arrays. So you don't have to use a loop that looks like this. You can do what's called like a dot map or a dot filter, stuff like that. But for loop, the one you're using, perfectly fine for now. Cool. All right. Questions on any of that? All good. All right. Then let's get into the code. Okay. All right. So
Actually, I do have a
yeah.
question really quick. So I just want to make sure I have that clear. So if I want to pull out the actual like item, then I do of, and then if I want to do like the index, I just do in. Is that
For
how that works?
I think so. I haven't really used either of those very much. Basically, just I use a regular for, um, or I use like I said, a higher order function like dot map or whatever. But we can try it out and see. Let's see. So we have, well, let me just make one up here. Back here. So if we got, so we'll do a const my array equals, and we'll say Taco Bell. Oh, bueno. Oh, pasa. And
Delta.
oh, Del Taco, I like it. Okay. I was gonna go crazy with it. All right. Okay. So if we do a for in loop, so uh do const, wait, yeah, we'll grab both these. So I'm typing. All right. So we're gonna replace where it says R with our actual array, right? So that way we can go through that. Okay. So yeah, so if we run the for of, we'll see what we get, and then we'll see what we get in the for in as well. Yeah. So yeah, for of is going to give you the actual values. For in is going to give you the actual indexes as to what what each one is. Um,
Okay.
I'm trying to think of a good place to use a for in because I mean, obviously getting the values is valuable. Um, but why would you want the in just random index positions?
Maybe to Um, like let's say that you were doing that to put into another function, and it might make it a little bit more flexible, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. We could do like we could say my array, and since what item is giving us is the actual index, then maybe that would give us each item. Yeah. But I mean that's exactly what the for of does, so that doesn't seem useful. Let's ask old Claude what he thinks. What is the use case for of loop and for in loop? Oh, okay, so for in is probably better for objects. Okay. Yeah, so for of makes sense. It's pretty much shorthand for our regular for loop. And then for in would give us the key, like we console log the keys for each object. Which there's other ways to do that too. There's an objects property you can use. Um, so yeah, it seems there's a lot of ways to do it. This one I would say, at least in my experience, have not used that one a whole lot. So, but good to know. So let's say we changed. Let's get an object going. Let's say my object. Let's do Taco Bell. Let's say one. Bueno, two, space there. Okay, so now we have an object for here. So if we do my object, and then we do item, let's see what that does for us. Let's get rid of this one. Okay, so that still gives us, oh, it's giving us the keys. Okay, so this now is the keys of each one of these. So if we did uh, new key dot value, we do my object uh, at item. This is probably gonna break. Let's see. Okay. So now it's instead of the indexes, now it's giving us the actual values of each one of the keys that it passes through. So
And if you wanted to do both, what would that be? Would that be just don't put the items in there? Would it just do both if you just did my object? Or would you need to do
when you say
key and item?
when you say both, you mean key and value?
Yes.
So what you could do is you could do like a um, string interpolation, and we could say let's just say key, and we'll do item, and then say value. Oop, that I think. And then I need my backtick. Yeah. Yeah. So item itself is going to be the keys, all the keys for that object. And then the object with the key in there gives you the value, right?
Hmm.
And so that's the same as like if you were just to want to look at um, like one of them, like if we're not talking about loops, then you could just do like my let's console.log my object with the key of uh, Taco Bell. So this is going to print 1, right? Because it's going to give you the value of it. So it's right there, 1. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Sweet. So yeah, so for in for objects, for of for arrays, or a regular for, or again, any one of the numerous built-in functions we're going to learn. Or yeah, function we're going to learn. Cool. All right, let's see what our thing looks like right now. Okay, cool. So we got this. So we can add an expense. Of course, we're going to have a taco and $1.20. It's food. Add it. It's over there. We got our total. Cool. Let's get a burrito for $2.50. Okay, and then we're gonna need to go get some gas for $700 because Iran and all that. Transport. Cool. So we got our table. Everybody's code is up to snuff, doing all this good stuff.
Actually, I think I need to update mine.
Okay.
So you put it in the
Yeah.
chat, right?
Yeah, I can throw it in there again real quick.
Okay.
So it's
Thank you.
easy to grab. Go to my thing. Okay. All right. Okay, there's the HTML. And there's the JavaScript. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, the goals for today are not that. Cancel. Um, we're gonna make the categories dynamic, so we're not gonna actually put them in here. Like currently, we have all these options, select all these options, and the reason is because once we're dealing with full stack and we have a database, you're going to grab those options from the database, right? So you'll have like a categories table in your database, or like a genders table or race table, like whatever kind of drop downs you're going to have is going to come from your database. So hard coding them like this is not going to work. So imagine we would reach out to the database, we'd get that data, and then we're going to make in our JavaScript, we're going to dynamically create those lists, right? So that'll be our first goal. So let me see. Check my notes over here. Let me see. Oh, that's wrong part. Nope, nope, nope. There we go. Okay, cool. So if we can imagine, we just hit our database, right? And we're going to get this data back. So we're going to need to store it somewhere, right? So that's where our lovely variables come in. So at the top here, I'll do it. I'm going to do it under here. I'm going to make a const because these categories, we're not changing them, right? We're just getting them from the database to display. So I'm going to put a comment and just says, pretend you got this data from the database. Okay. So we would have a function here that would reach out to the database. Well, we'd have a server that we'd reach out to that then would reach out to the database. And it would return this data back to us. And so we're going to store it in in an array because it's a list of stuff, right? We'll just call it our categories array. Okay. So in our array, we're going to have our categories. So in this case, we just have food, like just the same ones we had before. Transport, entertainment, utilities, and other. Okay, so that is going to be our data that we got back from our database. Cool. So then, let y'all get that real quick. Raising y'all up. Wow. Okay, y'all got that? Cool. Okay. Um, so now, so we got to think about our page. When do we want the categories? When our page loads, right? Like we want it to be there already. So we're going to need a event listener if we don't have one already for when the page loads. So let me look through our code here real quick. Let's see if we have one of those. Okay, we do not. Cool. So we're going to need to add one. And I think it's similar to the other one. Let me double check here. Local storage. Submit. Okay. So really, there's two ways we could handle it. We could just have the function be on the global scope and just call it immediately when the page loads. But the better way to do it is to handle it in the event. So let me get back to here. Okay. So very similar to like our submit, we're going to do an on-page load. And I'm going to do it at the bottom. Because normally when you have a script that you're gonna like call stuff from, you start at the bottom. That doesn't make any sense, but trust me. Okay, so we're gonna do oh, how did I do at the top? I'm gonna close. Oh, this one. Not form though. Okay. Okay. I think document dot on load, perhaps. This may be wrong. Let me see real quick here. Let's ask our buddy. How to catch page load with it. Ah, yeah, window. Very nice. Oh, or Dawn content loaded. I think this one is more, yeah, this is more preferable. Okay. Cool. So on the document, right? So on our DOM, we're going to add an event listener and we're going to say when the DOM content is loaded. So when all that HTML is like showing up on our page, that's when we want this to run. So for now, let's just throw us a console log in here and say page loaded. We'll run that. Cool. Y'all got that? Again. All right, so once you have it, then when we go to our page, if we open our browser tools, you can see right here, page loaded. If you refresh, page loaded, right? So that's how we know that it's working. So there's that for you. All right, so this,
Oh, I don't know if it's
oh,
working. You
uh,
reloaded. What did you see?
yeah, so over here in your console, you'll see page loaded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, whenever you refresh. Cool. All right. This will be really handy as we go on and do our local storage and things like that as well, because we're going to want to load that in when the page loads. Cool. So now that we have that, we want to create our list when the page loads. So we have our list up top. We're going to need a function, probably, maybe, or we're at least going to need a loop. We could make a new function. We could have a uh, yeah, we'll do it. We'll go ahead and just make a load um, function, load categories or get categories. That's fine. Load categories is fine. And so this is what will run on the page load, right? So we'll call it in here, load categories. We don't need to pass it anything because our categories are in the global scope. But really what we would do is inside of here, we would get the categories from the server. So let's set, or from the database. So we'll say like get categories from database. And I will go ahead and grab my categories and bring them down there. Say that. Okay, so we magically got our categories from our database. And then we're going to need to know where we're going to put them, right? So in our HTML, we currently have this happening, which we don't want this to happen anymore. So we have the select is what we need, right? We need this select in our HTML. So we have, that's like the anchor point, right? Where we're going to put our options. So we have this and we have this ID of category, right? So that's what we're going to grab onto. So I'm going to put a note in here, dynamically add category options. Okay. And I'll go back to the JS now. Good. Okay. Okay. So now we need to get access to that select, right? Because that's the anchor point for our options. So how do we get access to elements from our HTML? Y'all know this one.
What was the question?
How do we get access to that select to elements in our HTML?
It's like get doc.
Something similar. So we need a variable, right? So let's do select element, and then document dot. We'll use query selector this time, but you could use get element by ID, any of those kind of things. And what we want is the selector or the element that has the ID of category, right? This should look familiar, right?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. So that's going to get us that element. So then what we want to do on that element is change the HTML inside of it, right? So in that select, just how we had all these options inside of here, we're just going to dynamically create the options and put them inside of there. We did similar to this. I'll go back there in just a second. When we added the expenses. Nope, not when we added expenses. When we rendered the expenses. So remember in that table, we got the query and then we cleared it out, the inner HTML, and then we looped, or we changed the inner HTML. Well, this is if there were no expenses. But then we loop through our expenses and we would create and then append these elements for each one of those items, right? So we're going to do very similar to this, we're just going to put those categories in the options. Okay. So we'll go down and do that. Okay. So first kind of option we want is probably that, the default, like, hey, select an option, right? So we'll just get our element and we're going to change the inner HTML of it to equal, and this is where the actual HTML is going to go, right? So the HTML is going to be option. I always like to do the open and close just so I don't forget to do the close. And then in the opening bracket, we're going to have a value of just an empty string. And then it's going to be disabled because we don't want anyone to actually pick the empty string, right? And then it's also going to be initially selected. So these are just not parameters, attributes for the option HTML, right? And then in here, we're just going to say select a category. Put a little semicolon there. Okay. Tracking so far what we're doing?
Yeah.
All right, I'll let y'all copy that down. I'll be right back. All right, we get on that.
I think I have a couple things out of order. Hold on.
Okay.
Category. Okay, I think I'm good.
Okay. Cool. So we should see, um, yeah, we should see that option value, I think, when we refresh our page. Yeah, so there we go. So select category. We're seeing that there. You can't actually click it, but that's what you should be seeing right now. Okay.
Okay, so actually, so what I'm seeing is disabled selected, and then select the category.
Oh, you're seeing it all in, do you have your closing bracket right there?
Yes.
Here's
I don't have the other, when I click it, I don't see the categories. Okay.
So right now you shouldn't, it should just be select category. You want to share your screen?
Sure. Tell me where to scroll.
Yeah, right there's fine. So we're in the load categories function. So take line 149 and 151 and put it below that console log on 156.
So take line 149
Yep, and 151.
and 151.
Yep, got them and put them, yeah, like we're suggesting for you. There you go. And then are you calling load categories at the bottom?
I think maybe I don't have that possibly.
Oh, yeah, I
Probably.
see. I see. Okay. So you're okay. So yeah, take your okay, just undo what you did right now. It'll be easier that way. One more time. Okay. So you kind of merge together your function with your document event listener. It's two different things. Um, so take that function line on 154, just the top. Yeah, just cut that guy. And then move it up to like 147. And then put a closing curly bracket on 152.
Okay.
Yep. And then get rid of the one on 159. Yep. Okay. And then on 155, move document, backspace it over a little bit. Keep going. One more. Okay. And then 157, move that bracket back one. Cool. Okay. So yeah, you had them all merged together. So
Okay.
basically the document add event listener DOM content loaded, that's gonna run when the content loads, right? It's not gonna
Mhm.
work yet. We have one more thing to do. Um, so yeah, go back to your code. And so when that runs, that's when we want to load those categories in.
Mhm.
Okay. So you'll want to call your load categories function after that console log.
Okay.
Still inside the document content loader. So yeah, there you go. There
Here.
you go. Yep. Yeah. So when the DOM content loads, this is going to call this callback function, which is your console log and now your load categories. Like that's
Okay.
going to be called when the content loads.
Okay.
Cool. And then yeah, then it'll actually call that stuff up there. So now you should see your select category. Okay, you still got the disabled selected. I think you're probably missing some quotes or oh, yeah. So you have a closing bracket after value there on 151. You just have an extra one there right after where it says value. Yeah. Get rid of that bracket.
Oh, oh, this.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So disabled and selected are attributes for that option. So they're going to be within the opening bracket. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Yeah. So they should be good. There you go. Beautiful.
And I'm not supposed to have the actual categories yet, right?
Not yet. Nope. That's the next step.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Give back the screen.
All right. Okay, cool. Da-da-da. I know that in the JavaScript, like this looks kind of weird, but this is literally just the HTML option that we would have had over here inside of this guy. Like it's this exact same thing. So these value and disabled and selected, like those are all just attributes, just like when we had class or like for, they're just in there. You can actually set them to true, like you could do equals uh true, maybe. Um, but they default to true, so you don't have to do that. So you're saying yes, it's disabled, yes, it's selected. So
Okay.
let me get rid of that. Okay. All right. Any other questions on that? Wait, no. All right. Cool. So now we have that default select a category option in there. So now we want to actually loop through our categories array, and make an option for each of these. Okay. So we'll just use a regular for loop. Yeah, we use a regular for loop. So we're going to start at the beginning, right? So we're going to let I equal 0. And you can put these together, like that space doesn't matter. Something weird about fors that really threw me off at the beginning, it's the three things inside the parentheses are separated by a semicolon or semicolons, not commas. I kept trying to do commas all the time, but it's semicolons. So just if your for loop isn't working or you're getting an error, that could be it. Cool. So again, starting with for loop. So we're starting at 0, index is 0. We're going to keep going as long as I is less than the length of our categories array, right? So we can get each item in that array. So we'll do category array dot length, right? So start at 0, go until the length of this array, as long as we're less than the length of this array, okay? And if remember, we're starting at 0, so the length is actually going to be 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the index position of the last one is 4, since we start counting at 0. So that's why we wouldn't do like length -1 or anything, because we do want to get that whole array. Okay. And then our iterator, we're just going to iterate by each one, right? Some cases you would use a different type of iterator. If for some reason you wanted to start at the back of the array and go backwards, you could do I minus minus. But you would have to change your beginning to like categories array dot length -1, right? So you start at the end of the array and then go backwards. Maybe like a countdown you might use that for. It's not super common, I don't think, to do it that way, but you do have those options. You could also go by 2, so you could do like I plus 2 if maybe you just wanted to get all the odd or even numbered elements in the array. And so if you wanted to go by odds, you could start at 1, like I equals 1, and then plus 2. So you would just do 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Just some other things you can do. Today, we're not doing any of that. Just making it easy. Okay, so we got our for loop, got our brackets. So inside here is where we're actually going to see each of those items, right? So I'm just going to console log my categories array at position I, right? Which is going to be that current position. So starting at 0. So the first time when I console log, it's going to be categories array at position 0, which is food. And then the second time, categories array position 1, transport, so on, right? And so we can just put a deal here and say current, let's just say current category item, just so we know what it is. Okay, so I'll come right back to this, just so you can see over here it is load each time logging that next item. Okay. All right. So now that we're going through there, we need to actually create that option, right, element, just like we did here, but for each one of those categories. Okay. So we're gonna have to actually, sorry, this was just the inner HTML. We're gonna have to actually create the element and then append it onto our select element, right? So in order to create it, we can just do a const option and then set it equal to document dot create element. And then what do we want to create? We want to create an option element, right? So just like we have this select element, now we have this option element here. I'm going to call it option element so we know it's an element. And this is where we're actually going to put that HTML, right, for the option onto this option element. All right, so since we have the option element, we can then start manipulating it, for lack of a better term. So we know that we want the value of it, right? So just like we have value here, we want the value of the option element to actually be the category, right? So food, transport, whatever. So since we're looping through the category array, we would have category array at position I, right? Because as we saw in our console log, like that's this, right? So that's position 0, position 1, position 2, so on. So we're actually going to change that value on this option element we made and set it equal to food, transport, entertainment, so on. Something to remember, this value is not what you see, right? This is what's actually is going to be passed to us in the JavaScript. The thing you see is what's written inside here, which is actually the text content, right? So that's something that's a little tricky at first because you think, oh, value, that's what it is. But that's not what you're actually seeing. It's the text content. So we only need to update that as well. So we do option element dot text content. We're going to set that to the same thing, right? Because we want our text content to be food, transport, entertainment, whatever. So this is going to be the actual string that we're going to see inside that option. This value is what's actually going to be passed to us. Sometimes your value and your text content won't be the same. So if we had IDs in our database, so like if food was ID 1, transport ID 2 or whatever, the value would actually be that ID number instead of the string. And then the text content would be the actual string. So in this case, we just have a simple array with just some strings instead of some objects. So we can just use it both ways.
Really quick, could you explain again what's the point of the option element dot value?
Yep. So the option element gives us this thing, right? This is what it's creating, is this element. We need to change the value of it to be whatever value we want to get back, right? So whenever they select food, we want food to come back as the value. So before, when we had it over here, we would have value of food, and then we would say food in there. So when they select it, the food is what's going to be passed back to JavaScript so that we can use it. So this is the same basically as saying like if I were to build this, let's say I built it like this. Oops. That. Oh, man. So imagine option.value. I'm just putting this, which again is like food or transport or whatever, right in here, right?
Okay.
So I'm building out this element is what I'm doing.
Okay, so you're telling it where you want the content, basically, and then the text content is the actual content.
Exactly. So select a
Okay.
category here would be food or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Yep. Yeah, it's hard to visualize in the beginning what's going on. Cool. So now we have this option element, right? We've created it, but we haven't done anything with it yet. We haven't actually put it on the page. So now we have to actually append it to somewhere. And in this case, we want to append it to our select element, right? Because that's where we want it to appear, is under that select. So you just say where you want to put it. So select element dot append child, because you're making it a child of that select. And then what do you want to append? We want to append our option element. So this is the magic that actually makes it appear on the page. There's also just append, which that does not make it a child. It makes it a sibling, I believe. So if we think about when we had the options, they were within the select, right? So they were a child of it, as opposed to like this div is, well, the div's not getting, this label is like a sibling of the select, not a child of it. Okay. So that's why we're using append child.
Looks like it worked.
Wait, let's see. There we go. You can select. All right. Who wants to walk me through what we did? Not everyone at once.
So I'm still getting an error on mine,
Okay.
but I'm gonna look at it and see what I can figure out really quick.
Okay.
Okay. I guess I can try.
Okay. We'll do it.
We'll see. I'm still trying to. I think it'll help me like get it to stick. Okay,
Yeah.
so we basically created a function to load the categories and
Hmm.
started off uh, by making an element that was going to okay, so the const select element equals document query. Um, that's making an element that's going to pull from the uh, HTML uh, script, right? And then select element inner HTML. That's where we're telling it what elements we want it to pull. We're basically making a space for the value and um,
So I think you're getting ahead of yourself.
am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this document.query selector looks at the HTML page and says, is there a element over there that has the ID of category?
Okay.
So it's not creating anything at this point. It's just saying, hey, is it over there? Cool. Give me access to it if it is in this variable.
Okay.
So this way we can then change the inner HTML of that select element. So
Okay.
this is going, all right, let's see, go over here. Do we have an ID of category? Yep, we got one right here. So let's get this guy, right? And so then we have access to that guy, and then we're gonna change the HTML to just that default selector. Okay. So we're actually putting this option guy inside like this, inside of here, right? So that's what that's accomplishing.
Okay.
Okay. So then we have that just default selector. And then go ahead.
Okay. Then we're making a loop to go through and select like the first category and populate it, and then the second, and then the third. And so it'll actually dynamically add, like, let's say that we make another category in the HTML, then it will dynamically add it. Or let's say we took something away, it would dynamically take it away, right? Because
So it's
it runs a loop every single time. So it's basically reading what the categories are in HTML and pulling it to the JavaScript so that it'll show on screen,
so
right?
not in HTML. It's getting the categories from this array.
Uh, okay.
And then it's creating the actual options and putting them in HTML.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, so right now, as the page loads, like if this didn't exist, there would just be that select with no options, right?
Mhm.
So as the page loads, we're gonna grab these categories from the database, right, our fake database. Then we're gonna get access to that select element with the ID of category, put that default option in there, and then we're gonna start going through this guy. And we're gonna say, okay, this is create element, right? So I'm making a new option. I'm making a new one of these guys, and then I'm gonna start putting stuff in it. So I'm gonna get the value of it, and I'm gonna get access to the value of it, and put one of these guys in there, right? And then same thing with text content. I'm gonna get access to the text content and put one of these guys in there. And then I'm actually gonna append it to the select element, right?
Okay. That makes more sense. Thank you.
Hmm? So at the end, what we would have, well, we can actually just see it on our page here. Elements. Do-do-do. Which one am I on? This guy, this guy, this guy. That's our form. Here's our category. Here's our select. So you can see we have all the options, right?
Hmm.
Get this. Nope, this is our far to go. So none of these are actually in our HTML, right? Our HTML is just a select with nothing inside. See? But dynamically, we're going through there, creating all of those options and then appending them to this select. So we actually do get this HTML on our page, but it's created in the JavaScript and appended
Okay.
to the HTML. Cool.
Hmm.
Cool. Okay, Elizabeth, did you figure out your error? Cool. All right. Laura, you got it? Master, Pro? Okay. No? Okay. Okay, any other questions on that bit? Very good. Okay, so now we're getting that. Okay, so if we create a new category, so let's, or not create a new category, sorry, if we select a category, so let's, it still works, right? We still are getting transport. We change it to entertainment, I don't know, Netflix, Windows. Cool. So everything still works. Let's look at our ad expenses. Uh, so we're getting our expense. Oh wait, not set. Yeah, so it's still works the exact same way it did before, right? It just we're dynamically creating those. We're still in our form. This is our form submit. We're getting those values. So here's our category value. And then passing that to our ad expense to then add it to our table, right? So all of that still the exact same. The only difference now we have we're dynamically populating those expenses or those categories, sorry. So if we went to our database and we're like, hey, we want to add, another category in our database, and then we grabbed it and then we brought it over here, and so then we had like, I don't know, let's say school supplies. And then we went back to our page, then voila, we have a new category, right? So we can select that and say pencils, $1, and then that'll work right there. So technically, if we had a database, we would not have to make any code changes to add as many categories as we wanted. All we'd have to do is go to our database, update our database, and then no redeployments of our websites, nothing like that. It would just be there because our code dynamically produces it. Cool. So it may seem small, but that's super powerful because I mean, anything you see or do, Netflix or, sports betting or whatever it is, like it's all like data-driven stuff. So this is big, big stuff. Good stuff. Okay. Derek, you got any nuggets on any of this? You want to throw in? Derek sleep. Okay. All right. No nuggets. Cool. Okay, so that was number one. Let's see what the next thing we're gonna do is we displayed data, we made a drop down. Let's do we'll stick with the table for now. We'll do local storage last if we have time. So we're gonna delete an expense. Okay, that's gonna be our next goal. So let me put the dog out real quick. I'll be right back. But my dog tripped over his feet yesterday. He's awful. Now he's scared to step off the porch. I have to be like, go. Like, you've done this 1,900 times. He's 13. I don't know if I told you that. He's an old boy. Okay. We are doing delete. Let me look at my notes. Okay, delete an expense. Okay, so the goal is going to be that for each item, we're going to want like a little red X or something to be able to delete that item. Okay. So if we look at where we're actually creating the table, then we'll see, let's get you right there. So in our render expense, right? So this is where we're actually creating that table on the right side, right? So within here, we're just going to create a new row, a new table data that's going to have the button to delete the expense. Okay. And so I'm just going to copy my notes and put it over here. And cool. So we just did a new table data. So remember, those are all the columns, right? So we have our date, our description, category, our amount, and then we're just making a button. We're using some Bootstrap here, right? So some Bootstrap classes, button danger, which is red, and then we're making it a small button, and it's just going to say delete. A new thing that you might see here is we actually have an onClick with a function inside of our HTML, right? So we're in our JavaScript file, yes, but we're making this HTML button where we're actually going to call a function on the onClick of the button, okay? So this is the same as if we were to put this button on our HTML page. Like, let's just say I just throw it in down here. We'll just put it right here. Don't actually do this, just for an example. In our HTML, we could actually call this function in our JavaScript with our onClick. And then in here, we would have to pass the ID. So if this was a hard-coded table, we could pass like ID of 1 or whatever the ID of the thing that we clicked was. Normally, you're going to do this in your JavaScript side because then you can be dynamic with it. But this is valid. Like, you could call a function that's written in your JavaScript, like with an onClick or an onBlur or some sort of event like this. Okay. So that's just what we're doing on our side, but we're doing it dynamically with this delete expense function, which we haven't created yet. We still have to create this function. And then we're passing it the current expense ID. So right here, we have that ID that we're giving it, and that's coming from our expenses array, which we're saving here for our current expense, right? So if we remember, our expenses array is up top here. This is what we are populating as we are submitting that form, right? So if we look back at our render, we're not a render. or add expense, this is where we're pushing to that expenses array, right? Because every time we add an expense, it goes through here, creates that expense object, and then pushes it into that expenses array, which is global right here. So we have access to it within our render. Like that. Cool. A lot of bouncing around. All right, so once we got that in there, we need to actually create our delete expense function, so we can call it. I'm just gonna put it down. Let's see, I'll put it right above. Yeah, this we could organize this better, but I'll put it up here. This is gonna be delete expense function, delete expense. So we can see here that we are actually passing it in an ID, right? So that's the argument we're passing it. So we know when we create it here, we're gonna have to take it, we're gonna have to have a parameter. So we're just gonna say expense ID, and we'll just console log that for now. Oops. Expense ID. Now I'm gonna say delete function expense ID. Okay, y'all got that? Cool. All right, so now if we look at our deal and we add an expense, we now have this delete button next to it, right? So if we look at our console here, and we hit that delete button. I'm going to clear this. We got much junk. Then we can see we're passing that ID, right? So food, or this is ID of 1. If we create another one, burrito Tuesday. And then I hit delete. So that's number 2, right? ID of 2. So now we know, okay, we have access to that direct entry of our expenses. Oops. So what do we want to do now? We want to actually delete it. So if we delete it, we're going to remove it from the array, right? From this expenses array, because that's what we're doing is building out that array on the table. So in order to delete it, we need to find it in the array. And so we can find it, where do we go? Right here. With a for loop, because we got to loop through that array to find that specific one, right? And so we have, oh, okay. Okay. So we're going to make some room here. So we're going to, first we're going to have a variable for index to delete. So this is going to be the index value of the one we're going to delete. We're going to set this to -1 for right now, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then we're going to have a for loop to loop through to find the ID of the one we want. So for loop, we're going to start at 0, just like we have been. We are going to go through our expenses array, expenses length. And then we're going to iterate like normal. And what we want to know is if the expense we're looking at, the ID of that expense matches up to the ID of that we're passing in, then we know we have the right expense, right? So we're going to say if expense at position I, so the current iteration, like what's the current one we're looking at, right? Dot ID equals, triple equals, right? ID, so ID being what we brought in, so it's going to be expense ID. So expense ID. If those match, so I'm going to say console.log found correct expense. And then I'm going to put space, wait. Expense at position I. All right, this should be expenses. Okay. Okay, so for now, we're just looping through. We're taking the ID that we're passing into our delete, and we're seeing which expense it matches up to, right? And we can actually, let's console log our expenses array at the beginning here too, so we can kind of see what we're looking at. Expenses. Okay. All right. So once you have that, and I'll come back to this, you should see if we clear our deal here and just add a couple here. Uh, let's add one. When I hit delete, now I should see this is my ID, right? This is our current expenses. So it's this object or this array of objects, which is just one. It has the ID of one. And so the one I found was same one, right? Because I only have one. ID of one, taco, this whole thing here. So now we know we're finding the correct expense. So if we were to add another one, 250. I cleared that. If I were to click on the second one, then ID of two, these are both our expenses, the burrito and the taco. And then the correct one is the taco, right? Or the burrito, because I clicked on the burrito. Okay. So we know we're getting the right one. Because obviously if we tried to delete taco and we deleted burrito instead, not what we intended.
I'm getting a reference error.
Okay.
It says uncut reference error. Expense is not defined. At delete expense index 95.5.
Do you have expenses, plural?
95. No, it just says well, okay. 94 it says expenses, and I think 95 is expense.
Yeah, so it should be expenses because we're looking at that array, right? And we're
Mhm.
getting the position I of that array.
Would it also be expenses ID or expense ID?
This one?
Yeah. Okay, I think I see what I did.
Yeah, this expense ID is what we're passing in here.
Okay. Okay, that was what it was.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, you ready? Keep going. Sweet. Okay, so once we find our expense, then we're done looping, right? Like we don't need to loop anymore. We found it. So we just need to save that index so we can then just remove it. So this is where our index to delete will come in. We're going to set that index to delete equal to I, right? Because I is going to be the index of the one that we want to delete. Okay. And then to be done with the loop, we need to break out of it. So you can use the keyword break here. And this is going to just stop the loop. It's going to say, okay, we're done. Let's break out of this guy. Because you can imagine if you have like a database of 1,000 employees and you're looking for employee number ID 2, you don't want to go through the other like 998 employees once you find the one you need. So we find it, we got it, we got the reference to it, getting out of there. Right, so this, I'm gonna put some comments here. This is loop through to get index of expense we want to delete. And then we are going to actually remove the expense from the expenses array. So the reason that we have a -1 when we initialize this variable is when you're going through here, the index is going to get replaced if it finds it. If it does not find it, we need a way to check that, right? And so if it doesn't find it, it's never gonna reassign this. So we can say if index to delete does not equal -1, then we're gonna delete it, right? If it does equal -1, then we didn't find it, whatever we're looking for. Yeah. So obviously, if we hit the button, it was there, and we should never run into this condition. But somehow code can get messed up or something can get entered wrong. So we need to check and say, okay, do we actually find what we're looking for? And so if we did, so if this is true, if the index to delete does not equal -1, then we want to do, I think not our first, but one of our array methods, which is called splice. And so we're going to say on that array, so we're looking at that whole array again, expenses dot splice. What splice does is you give it the index that you want to remove, and then I think how many spaces you want to go, which I'll explain in a second. So we're going to give it index to delete, right? Because that's the index we want to get rid of. And then just that one. We don't want to go anywhere else. Yeah, delete count. So the delete count is the number of elements to remove. So if we were to say like 3, it's going to find that index and delete that one plus the next 3 with it, or the next 2 with it. We just want to delete the one that we found. Okay. Okay, and then just for fun, after that if, we'll console log our expenses again to make sure that it did get removed. So we'll say expenses with item delete, or with expense deleted. Okay, so once we have that, we can go to our page. We can start over again and add some more stuff. Food, gas, $200. Transport and Netflix, $20. Entertainment. Okay, so if I clear this so we can see, and I will delete food. Okay, so notice nothing happened on the screen, right? It didn't delete. However, if you look at our console log, we started our delete function. We got ID of 1 because we tried to delete the first one. We had the 3 in there, right? Well, okay, I'll tell you what happened in a second. But you see this is length of 3, right? Because there were 3 elements, or sorry, 3 objects in this array. We found it and then we deleted it, so now there's only 2. The reason it shows 2 up here is because again it's referencing it by value, however that's said. So it looked at it and thought, oh, there was 3. Then we actually removed it and then it had 2. But this is looking at the same space this is, which is now 2. Okay. So point being, we had 3. we found it. We now have two. However, the page didn't upload, right? Or didn't refresh or didn't update. So it didn't because if you remember, we have this render expenses function, which this actually repaints the page every time. Okay. So the whole table is rebuilt every time that this function is called, which we have to do because that way it's always a fresh page with exactly what should be on there. So all that to say, we need to call this function again after we delete the expense. So we just do render expenses like that. Okay. So now if we look again here, do it again, taco 150. Nope, food, nope, food. Netflix 200. Entertainment. Yes. 700. Transport. Okay, so now if we delete food, disappears. It's gone. And the same thing, we had three, we now have two. So now if we hit another one, bam, we had two, we got one. Delete the last one, we had one, we got zero. It's empty. So it works. We do have some bugs. Our total did not update. But it deleted it, right? Pretty cool. Okay, I'll leave that up there if y'all need to copy it still. Let me know if you get any bugs or if you're get it working.
I also have the total bug that didn't clear the total, so.
Okay, cool. We need to fix that then.
I have it as well.
Okay. But it is deleting. Everything else working?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Working for you, Laura? Yep, cool. Okay. So to fix that bug, I believe, yep, right here we have a get total function. So let's see where we actually use that at currently. And we use it inside of our render. So it should, let's see. So when it renders, it's getting the total, it should be updating it, but it's not. Let's see what's going on with that. Okay, so it works that way. Then we hit delete. Okay, so it did work. It did take it back down to 120, but then it just didn't go away when we had nothing left. So let's see, when we get total, let's see if it console logged. Our total 1.2. So it didn't log it on the last one. So 0. Let's see. So we're starting at 0. We're going through our expenses, get our current expense, and then we are adding the amount to it and returning the sum. So that gives us our total, which they are then replacing there. So let's see. I'm gonna console log sum in the total function and see if that ever gets to 0. Oops. Okay, so right now our sum is at 701.5. So let's get rid of that. So we got a total of 700. Okay, so our total never goes back to 0. So we probably, or our sum never goes back to 0. Yep. So it's hitting that. Sum total. It's going sum, then it's going total. I think it's okay. It's because it's probably not finding that anymore. So let's see. So let's see. Current expense amount. Oh, I can do it again. Okay, so current expense amount 700. Current expense amount 150, and then does not do current expense amount again. So it's not getting back in the for loop because there is no more expenses, right? So it's seeing this and it's saying, okay, we're gonna run through the expenses.length, but there's no expenses. So it doesn't come in here to reset the sum at all. So what we should do is probably have an if statement, say if expenses.length is greater than 0, then we want to do our for loop, right? Okay. Else, so if expenses.length is less than 1, right? So not greater than 0, then sum is just going to be 0. Which we actually don't even need that because we're making sum 0 here. So we don't even need the else. So this then should, if there is no expenses, it should set sum to 0 and then return 0. Okay, so let's see if that works. And didn't work. Okay, why did that not work? Our expenses are nothing. So we're coming back here, we're getting the total, we should be setting it there. But we're not seeing total again. That length is greater than 0. Tricky. Let's say we'll try an else to see if it helps us out there. Well, heck. Oh, that's too fixed. Okay, so let's see if it's getting here. Getting in else. So there's two, yes. Okay, so it's not getting in that else statement. So is it getting? Here, we'll console log expenses at the beginning here. This is what you'll do a lot of time when you're debugging is just kind of watch the flow and figure out like what's happening, what's going on. All right, taco 0 food, yes. Okay, let's clear that. So we delete this one. To current amount 710, like that one. So delete function, so expenses, line 90 is way up there. That's not what I want. Expense was deleted. Wait. Let's see. In there. Oh. Wait. That's why. That's why. Okay. I didn't look up far enough. Notice right here we have an if else. This says if expenses.length equals 0, which it does after we deleted that last one. Then we're just resetting that no expenses yet thing. We're not going into the else at all. So that's why we're not even getting into here, why we're not even seeing any of this, because we're stopping right here. Make sense? So yeah, as soon as we delete that final expense, our expenses array, there's nothing there. So it's a 0 length. So we're going right in here. So I can show you that. Console.log. No more expenses. So look at this. All right, so we got our sum and everything, right? Because we're actually getting into the get total function. And then we hit this last one right there, no more expenses. So we're stopping right at that if statement. So we have nothing here. So all we need to do then is reset this display when there is nothing in the expenses array to be 0, right? So we can, so just in here, we can just say We can get access back to our total element because that's what we want. So we're just going to grab this guy here. And we're going to put it in here. And this is, let's see, the else is here. I think we can leave it there because that's in that else. Okay. So this should then take our, get our total here, and then we're just going to change the text content to 0. So we can just do, well, I guess we leave that. But total is going to be 0. So we'll just say, we'll just put 0 in there, it's fine. 0. But that should reset it for us. Let's see if it does. Okay. There we go. 0. Cool. Okay, so I'll go through that one more time just so we can see it. Let me get rid of some of these console logs. So we didn't need to change anything in this get total. So we can, oops. We can put this back how it was, which there was no else. Okay, cool. So on the render, we're going through the expenses, right? And we're going to show them all in the table. And so when we start, we're saying, hey, is there actually any expenses in the table? Because if there isn't, then we just need to display the no expenses yet thing, right? Like we see right here, no expenses yet. Oh, it looks like we do 3 zeros. If there is expenses already in there, then we're going to jump down to the else, and that's where we're actually going to create those table data rows, right? And with our button and the whole shebang. And then we're going to get the total to see what we actually have. If there are not any, then all we need to do is display our no expenses yet, and then get our total element where we're going to actually put the 0, and then just change it to 0, right? We can put 0.00 just to make it look like the other one. Make sense? Tracking a little bit. Cool. Okay. I'll leave this up here for you all. Let's take like 15 minutes. Be back at 12:30, and then we'll move on to editing. And yeah, holler if you got any questions. All right. Ready to get back into this?
Yep.
Okay, any questions on deleting the expense?
Can you one more time go over the changes made for getting it back to zero?
Yep. So we'd done a bunch of stuff we didn't need to do. Really the only change is if there is no expenses, so if expenses dot length is 0, then we are just gonna get that total element. So we have that over here right
Mm.
in our table. And we are just literally changing the text content just to zeros. And that's in the render expenses.
Okay, cool.
Yep. The rest of that was all just debugging to get to that point.
Yeah, I just wanted to distill it and make sure I knew what exactly it was.
Yeah.
Thank
Yep. All right. I will go over delete one more time just so we can kind of get an idea. So when we're rendering our expense, we added the button for the table. So then in our table over here, we would have that delete button on the right for each one. And then when that button is clicked, so the on click event, we then would call the delete expense function, passing in the ID of that element or of that expense that we're going to delete. So then we look at our delete expense function, taking in that expense ID that we passed it. We are going to initialize this variable to -1, and then we're going to loop through those expenses to find the one with the ID that matches the ID that we're passing in. Once we find it, we set that index to that index, the index to delete variable to that index value, and then break out of the function because we don't need to go through the whole thing once we find what we need. And then as long as index to delete is not -1, so meaning that we have found the index, then we're going to splice the index to delete out of expenses. And so this removes whatever's at that index from the function, or not the function, sorry, from the array. So this will basically take that entire expense, take it right out of the array. Think of it kind of like pop, right? So pop's going to pop something off the end. This is going to pop it out exactly where it is, the one that we want. And then once that's done, we just need to repaint the page, as they say. So we call the render expenses again, which is just going to recreate all those table rows. This time it won't have the one that we deleted out of it. Bueno? Cool. Okay. So now editing. Editing is typically always going to be the most confusing because deleting, like you just find it and throw it away. You're done. With editing, we have to find it, we have to display it in a way that we can edit it, and then we have to put it back in the new edited form. Okay. So it's got some steps to it. It's very similar steps, but steps that we have to take to make all that happen. Cool. So to start, we're going to need a way to tell it that we want to edit it. So we'll probably need a button, right? So with our delete button here, we can make an edit button, which is going to be very similar. It will just say edit instead. So I'm put it before the delete button just for funsies. And this is in our render expenses or function. So pretty much the same. The difference, we're using a Bootstrap class warning, which makes it yellow. And then we are going to call our edit expense function that we'll create instead of the delete expense function. And then the word, it says edit instead of delete in there. But once you have that, you should see then, excuse me, when you add one that we now have this edit and this delete button, right? So the yellow and the red. It's not pretty. That's fine. I think it'll be pretty for now. But we'll have both of those. All right, cool. So now we need to make our edit expense function. So we'll go up here uh, under my delete function. That's my date order. I'm going to make a new function. This is going to be for edit expense. So function edit expense. And just like the delete function, it's going to take an expense ID. So we know which one to edit. And I'll do console log. And I'll say edit expense ID. All right, so once you have that, then when you go back to your page and you create one, zero. Then when you hit edit, you should see your edit expense ID in your column or in your console, just like we did with delete. All right, we good on that? Okay. We are going to need a variable to keep track of the expense we're going to edit. So we're just going to make, in this case, we'll make a global variable. So I'm just going to go back to the top and just under expenses, I'm going to do a let expense to edit, and I'm going to set it equal to null. And we're going to use this to check if we have an expense that we want to edit, or if we don't, it's going to be null. Cool. So then we're going to go back. Oh, wait. Sorry. This is going to be editing ID, not expense to edit. Sorry about that. Editing ID. So this is going to keep track of the ID of the one that we're currently editing. And the reason is because when we click the edit button, it's going to actually we're going to put the data back in the form, and then we're going to resubmit it. So this way we'll know, okay, this is the one that we're editing, because we're not all within the function. Okay. So this will be global, editing ID equals null. Okay. Okay. So let me go clap some of this so we can see what we're doing here. All right. So back in our edit expense function, first thing we got to do, find the expense, right? Just like we had to in the delete. So I'm going to make, this is going to be expense to edit, and I'm going to set it to null. And then just like in delete, we're going to have to go through the loop to find that expense. So we'll have a for loop. We're going to let I equal 0. And we're going to go as long as I is less than expenses dot length. And we're going to go one by one. Okay. And then again, just like the delete expense, we're going to say if expenses at position I dot ID triple equals ID, then we're going to set the expense to edit equal to the expense at that position of I. Okay. So very similar to the delete, right? We're just trying to find the one that we want to do something to. Okay. So once we have that, once we have searched for that, then we need to see if we actually found something or not. So we're going to have an if statement here and say if expense to edit equals null, then we know it didn't find anything, right? Because we initialized it as null. We look through here to try to set it to one of the expenses. If we didn't find one, it's still going to be null. So here we would just return out of the function. And you can console log and just say, oops, no expense found. All right, so if we do find it, then we know we're going to get past this gate, if you want to call it, right? So we know we did find it. So now is where the fun part happens. Now we're actually going to take our values and put them back into the form, right? So you can imagine when we have an expense here, and we want to edit this, we're going to hit edit, and it's actually going to put it like back here, right? So it's going to say taco 150, blah, 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 right? So then we can actually make some edits to it. So in order to do that, we need to get access to those HTML elements again, and then actually change their value, okay? So if we want to get access to this guy, description, it's going to be the same way that we got access to it before. We'll go look at description, and it has an ID. The input right here has an ID of description. So we can do document dot query selector looking for ID of description. The description. And we want to get we're going to update the value that's in there, right? Which currently is blank. And we want to set that value equal to our expense to edit dot description, right? Because that's going to be, we'll look at I'm going to bring this down just so we can see it in our thing here. So if this is the expense that we got, then this is what we're replacing it with. So in that form, the value for the description block is going to be our expense to edit dot description. So it's going to say taco. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing for the other two fields as well. So if we have our description, we have our amount, we have our category. So same thing for those two. Hit the wrong button again. Go over there. So document, query selector, and amount, dot value equals expense to edit dot amount. And finally, document dot query selector for category dot value equals expense to edit dot category. All right, so I got that. Cool. Okay. And then also we're going to need to keep track of the one that we were editing, like I was saying. So we're going to change that global editing ID variable we have and save that to our expense to edit. Nope, expense to edit dot ID. This way we have a global reference to whatever expense we're messing with. Okay, we should now see if we click the edit, it should refill up this table or this form. Let's see if it does. Does not. So I have an error. ID is not defined on edit expense 118. Let's see what we got. Ah, okay. Anybody see what I did here? There's something wrong right here.
Is it expense ID instead of expenses?
Nope,
No.
instead
Okay.
of ID. So expenses is our array of objects, right? So it's these guys. But ID here is supposed to be the ID that I passed in. So this should be expense ID. Expense. Make sense? Because we're comparing the ID for each expense we're going through. We're comparing it to the ID that we passed into the function, so we can get the correct expense. I see some furrowed brows. Are we confused?
Did changing that fix it? for you?
Let's see. Yep.
Okay. It didn't fix it for me.
You still have an error or it's just not working?
Error.
Was
Or
it
I
the
guess.
same one, the ID error?
Yeah. Let me go back. Uncaught reference on HTML 1.1.
Okay, let's go ahead and share your screen. Take a look at it.
Okay. All right. Everything's kind of crazy right now.
You're good. All
Okay.
right, let's see.
So when I go to edit, it says uncaught reference error. Edit expense is not defined at HTML button element.
Okay. Did you put your variable name in your on click on your edit?
Would that be on the HTML?
It'll be in your JavaScript. So it says HTML element because you creating that edit button element, but it's in the JavaScript.
Where is that? Oh, I'm on the wrong.
Yeah, so go so see how your edit expense is kind of blanked out a little bit?
Yeah.
That means it's not being called anywhere.
Okay.
So if we go down to our what you call it? Um oh, just scroll down. I forgot what the name of the thing was. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Yeah, render expenses. Open that guy up and go down. So right on your yeah, on your edit button there, so you have edit expense being called there or being used. Let's see.
Is this supposed to be
No, that's right.
okay?
Let's see, you get your button, you're on click.
What
TV
is
button.
it? I think I'm supposed to have another uh table. Let's see.
No, the buttons will be right next to each other. So that's fine. Um, let's see. So it's not referencing. All right, let's go back up to your edit expense function.
Edit expense.
Yeah. Oh, so all of your stuff is outside of the function. So you see how you have your closing curly bracket on 98?
Yeah.
Yeah, so all that below it needs to be inside of there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this part or all of it?
All of it, yeah. Keep going down. Yep, all the
Right here.
way past editing ID. Yep, which it looks like there is a bracket there already. So I wonder if that's, let's see, your for loop. Uh, that might be fine. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, your for loop, the blue bracket on 119, that's closing off your for loop. So
Uh-huh.
you can you like tab in your whole for loop, like 102 to 119. Like grab all that and hit tab.
Uh, one what to 119?
What really everything inside there. So 100. Yeah, not the function though. The function should stay on that line. Yeah. Yeah, 100 down to 119.
And tab.
Yeah, hit tab. Yep. There you go. So now
Okay.
you can kind of see that the for loop is inside of the function. It looked like it was on the same line, so it
Mhm.
didn't look inside of it. JavaScript doesn't care, but it's much easier to read this way.
Okay.
Um, but Let's see.
Try it again.
Ye- I wonder why. No, something's funky still because the
Oh,
stuff below 122 is off. Um, let's see. Go up a little bit. Scroll up. Oh, okay. So you have your edit function is for some reason inside your delete function. So
okay.
yeah, I can
So
yeah.
that's why I had an extra one.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, go to 96.
To 96.
Yeah, 96, yeah. And just collapse that. So if you go next to the F on function, yeah, hit that. And then just grab that
Right.
whole thing.
This.
Like highlight function in the bracket there.
Okay.
Is I was gonna have you collapse it so it could be easier to grab. There you go. And then you can just grab like 122 and 96 right there. Yep, and just Control X or Command X. And then go above your delete function and hit enter a bunch of times. There you go. And then paste it there. Okay, now go. Did you paste it?
Yeah.
Okay, so go scroll up then. Keep going.
It did. I don't. Maybe it didn't do it.
Yeah. Whatever your uh, editor is trying to help you, I don't think is being very helpful. Making everything look sloppy.
Yeah.
It might have not pasted it. Yeah, just try to paste it again. It's date formatting. Why is it?
Maybe did I not grab it right? Okay. Render. You know what? I'm going to Control Z.
Okay.
That explains it.
Yeah, maybe just Control Z a couple more times till it comes back. Okay. Now grab it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then put it above delete.
Yeah, outside of the function. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, just kind of back it up there on 91.
Back it up there. What do you mean?
Oh, sorry, backspace where function is, where the word function is. Yeah, backspace a couple times. One more time. There you go. So now you have it all inside the deal, and
Okay.
it's lit up. Let's see if that worked. No more error. That's good. Oh, ID is not defined. That's probably the same thing that I did. Yeah, go back to your function. Yeah. So on 98, you have expenses ID equals ID. That
Oh, it's
ID is going to be the one that you're bringing in. So the expense ID. Yep. So that makes sense. So that's matching what you're passing in on 91.
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hmm? Bam. Perfect.
Okay. When you edit it, do you don't hit add expense? Do you just like after you edit it, what do you do? Or is that something we have?
That's the next step. Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Laura, Elizabeth, y'all good? Cool. All right. Sweet. All right, I'll take back over.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, cool. So yeah, so we're getting it where it's populating the form again. And so now add expense doesn't really make sense, right? Because we already have the expense. So we want to edit it instead. So we should probably update our button to say edit expense. Um, so to do that, any idea on how we're going to do that?
Would it be some kind of an if then loop that would an if then like if it's an edit, then the button should be edit.
Yes, but we already know it's going to be an edit, right? Because we just updated the values to be what was already in our object. So we don't really need to tell it because we're already in here, right? We're in the edit expense.
Mhm.
But you definitely could use a toggle to say, okay, if it's this, we want add. If it's this, we want edit. But in this case, we're already in here. So all we got to do is just grab that element and then update its content. So like the other things we've done, we're doing document.querySelector. And this is a interesting new way to do it. We're gonna get so we want to get that button, right? Like that's the element we want to get is this button to then change the text. So if we look at that button in our HTML, down here, our button is where is our button? Well, that's our input. Our button right here. So our button doesn't have an ID. We could give it an ID. That'd be fine. But we could also um, find it based on it's the only button that has a submit type, right? So this is a different way, still using query selector. What we could say is in the element that has expense form ID, which is our form, right? So if we look at our form here, we have ID expense form, right? So in that, if there's a button that has a type that equals submit, oops, I gotta use double quotes on the outside. It has a type that equals submit. Then we're going to update its text content to say update expense. Like that. So kind of a different way. Like if the button itself had an ID, we could totally just use the ID of the button. Sometimes though, you may not have access to the HTML to be able to actually like put a button on it or whatever, or an ID on it. So you'll have to be strategic about like how you narrow down that field. This is also really helpful when it comes to web scraping. And so sometimes you'll have a product where you'll actually like go out to like the competitor's site and you'll scrape data off of their site. And you do that based on HTML elements. And so you would find stuff this way. You would be like, okay, let me find this, all their stats on this or whatever that's in this HTML and this thing and blah, blah, or whatever. So it's good to know the different ways that you can select an element. It's not always going to be as easy as, hey, just give me this thing with this ID. Okay. That's my blurb on that. But bottom line is we're just using the query selector. We're changing the text content on an element. So it'll update whatever we want it to. So if we got that, then you notice we have add expense still. So we're going to add an expense. And then when we go to edit the expense, you see it updated to update expense instead of add expense. Cool. All right. So now we've got it. So we've got it where we're actually getting our values back into the form. We've updated the button to say update expense, so it makes more sense. So now we need to change our submit function, which I think is up top here. Yep. Because now when we hit submit, it could be an add or it could be an update. So we need to make it so that our event listener for the submit handles both. So we'll jump back in this guy. And we're still getting our descriptions. All this is good. Now we're going to use an if else kind of like Wayne, like you were saying, to tell whether or not we're updating or adding. And so we'll have, before we do any sort of validations, we are going to have an if, and we're going to say if editing ID does not equal null. So if you remember, editing ID is our global variable to keep track of that ID that we're editing. And so if it's null, that means we're not editing because we haven't clicked anything. If it isn't null, then we're editing something. And so we can throw us a console log in here. And say editing ID. Oh, excuse me. Editing ID in submit. Editing ID. Okay. And then we're going to have else. So basically, this is saying if editing ID is not true, so this means it is an edit. And then else it is an add, right? Because there's only two things we can do. Well, three things, but we're either going to be editing it or we're going to be adding it. If we're adding it, then we just need this bit down here, our add expense, to be inside of there. And our validate also. Take this up here. All right, so once we have that, then we go back to our page. Let's add an expense. Okay, and then if we hit edit, and we got over here, and then if we hit update, then it shows our stuff. So editing and submit is right there. So editing and submit, ID of 1, right? So that's the one that we're editing. So if we had another one, recon, and then we hit, wait. Oh, we didn't change it back yet. So notice that it's staying update even after I hit update. So we'll have to fix that. But you should be seeing this console log, right? Nothing's actually editing yet, but seeing that we're in submit, which is this guy here. We got any errors or anything?
Mine's still not updating.
Not updating the,
Yeah.
like when you hit update?
Yeah, when I hit update, it'll show uh editing ID and submit one,
Mhm.
and then it'll give me the old price instead of the new one.
Yep. Yeah, we're so in this, if that's all we're doing right now is console logging. We haven't actually updated any values yet.
Okay.
Yep. So as long as you're seeing that console log, you're good.
Okay. Good.
I'm having trouble seeing so that parentheses that in parentheses online, I guess 41 on yours. Where's the beginning of that one?
Right here.
Oh, up there. Okay. Um, will you scroll back down again to about where that was? Okay. So,
Yeah.
and
This is
that's
the
like
whole
a
thing right there.
okay. I'm having some kind of issue with that. My code doesn't, or my thing is mad about that.
All right. Throw it up on the screen. Let's check it out.
Okie dokie.
Let's see. So your else,
Uh-huh.
you need a bracket for that. So right after the add expense on 34.
Okay.
So basically on line 35, add a curly bracket,
Okay.
a closing curly bracket. Yeah,
Oh, closing. Okay.
there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I
So
see.
yeah,
It's from that one. Okay.
yep, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, cool. So yeah, so now that we know we're actually getting into the edit, now we can actually update some values. Um, so first thing we got to do, just like always, is we got to actually find the one that we're trying to edit. So we are gonna do a for loop, like we do. Let I equal 0. And we're going through our expenses. Oop, I didn't do it right. I is less than expenses dot length and I plus plus. Okay, put some extra space here. And then just like we did before, we want to see if our expenses at position I dot ID equals the editing ID. Editing ID. So yeah, that same ID, that we know we have a hold of that we're going to be editing. So if it is the right one, then we are just updating the object, right? Because the object is what is actually being displayed on our page. So we would be expenses at position I dot description equals description, and expenses at position I dot amount equals amount, and at position I dot category equals category. And if you wonder where description, amount, and category come from, they come from right up here. So just like when we originally were adding the expenses, the exact same thing. We just fill it out the form again, grab the values from it, and now we're just updating the objects with those values, or the object with those values. That way. All right, so I got that.
Mhm.
Anyone have an answer to my question?
This is not a question. This is not what you're looking for, I don't think, but it's something I'm wondering. So this expenses is saying that is the index is I, right? Is that what it's saying? So how's that a position, I guess?
I.
Yeah.
So each iteration, I is going to be wherever you're at, right? So the first time we go through, I is going to equal 0.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then the I plus plus then makes it one the next time around, and then two. And so that's how we go through the array, right? Where it started at 0, 1, 2. And so if we're looking
Okay.
at expenses, so expenses is, let me see where I put it, right here. So let me move this up here. So if our array is like this, let me comment this. Okay. So if this is our array, right? So this is index position 0, right? And then this is index position 1. So as we're going through, so I is 0. So first off, expenses at position I, the first time around, is this object. And then the next time around, we're going to go I plus plus, so it's going to be 1. So then we're looking at expenses at position 1, which is then going to be this object because it's 0, 1, 2, so on. Make sense?
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
I think Elizabeth's got her hand raised. I just barreled in and she's politely got her hand
Yeah.
raised. So
You're okay. I realized after you had said I have a question. So,
Oh.
don't we need to add a break?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So whenever you are going through a loop, ideally you never finish the loop, like unless it's like you needed to print or whatever every single iteration. But normally you're looking for something. So yeah, as soon as you find it, then you want to get the heck out of there because you're just wasting time at that point. So yeah, we'll just throw a break in there. So we're saying if we find it, we're going to do this stuff and then we're getting the heck out of Dodge because we don't need to be in this loop anymore. Cool. Cool. As for the looping through, at my boot camp, we did a lot of whiteboarding and like actually writing out, okay, if iteration 1, okay, these are the values, iteration 2, these are going to be the values. And it was super helpful. So if, or any of y'all, if you want on your own, like write on a piece of paper, okay, here's my array, write it out. Okay, iteration 1, I should see this. Iteration 2, I should see this. And kind of makes it more solid when you can see it that way, you know. So cool. All right. So at this point, we should see, we have a little cleanup to do, but I think we should see the actual, it actually updating. So let me put taco 50. Okay, let me slide this over so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so we got taco food 150. Let's edit it. I'm going to change taco to burrito and change 150 to 250. And if I update, bam, look at that. Burrito 250. Worked like a champ. Now we still need to, like I said, we still got a little cleanup to do, but if I edit again, so it's burrito 250, let me just change it to school supplies and update. There you go, school supplies. Works. And note that we didn't have to change the view, like the actual elements again. We just had to update the values because if you remember, when it's rendering, when we have our, where'd it go? Our render expense, this is looping through that expenses array. So we just are changing the data, updating the data in that array, and then it's going over that array and displaying it all again. So we didn't have to come back and actually like make more rows in our update. That was all handled down here in the render. Okay. That's the beauty of it. Like if we got all that from a database, it's doing everything it needs to do already, and we're just throwing in data. So they're updating data. Okay, so the two things we need to do is actually change that update button back to an add button, because obviously we're not updating at that point. So to do that, we would do the same way we changed it before, right? So we would just do our document query selector, and we're going to get that same the same button. So again, the ID expense form button type equals submit. And then the text content equals, and then we're going to change it back to add expense. Okay. So just like we changed it to update, we're just changing it back to add. Cool. So once you have that, then you should see when we go back from our edit, that it should go back to add. So if I do an edit, and I'll just say taco whatever, update, there we go. Goes back to add, right? That's the goal. And the final thing we got to do is reset our editing ID. Just reset that to null. And we got to do that. So then if we were to hit update without resetting it, then it may still have that past data in it, which we don't want. And if you remember, that's our global ID that we just use to reference the ID that we're editing. And this is all in that if statement. Everybody good on that? Okay. Any questions over any of that? All good. Okay. Cool. So we won't get into um, local storage. We'll do that probably Wednesday. We'll go over that. And then you guys will be off to the races on building all of this, but by yourself. Um, I'll try to make a what do you call it? Like a checklist, basically, like everything you need to have. Um, and I don't, let me look at, are y'all done with the code? You still need to see this, or are we good? Good. Okay. Let me look at what homework is. Where's my deal? Module 2. That's not it. Oh, I know. I have it right here. Okay. Yeah, these will be good to have. Let me look at higher order functions. Free cocaine. So I think we'll just do the DOM manipulation one, and I'll post this. And we'll save higher order functions for module 3. But that way you don't have a whole lot of, I mean, it's still quite a bit, but you can start start getting the bones together for your own expense tracker. Get a repo set up, and get your HTML, your Bootstrap, all that good stuff. And yeah, I think that's what we'll focus on Wednesday and Friday and Saturday. Should be the last day, right? And yeah, we'll talk about local storage also. So that way, with local storage, we'll be able to actually like refresh the page, and it'll still keep your expense and stuff here. Because, it's kind of annoying that every time you refresh, all your stuff's gone. That's no fun. So we'll work on that. Okay, questions over any of that? Over anything we went over in JavaScript so far? Nothing at all? Just practice? Okay. The good news is this is all there is to learn as far as JavaScript goes. Everything else we do builds upon this. Like everything we do in the server, it's all just functions, loops, variables. It's all the same stuff. It's just extrapolated, I guess you could say, to do a lot more, to do a lot of things, right? But it's all the same. Like when we talk to our server, we're going to be using functions to do that. We're going to be passing variables. We're going to be, getting data from the database and then displaying it, manipulating it, all with JavaScript. So this stuff right now that you have like the base level knowledge of, you're just going to keep learning it and do it on a lot more bigger and cooler things. So that's exciting, right? And then even as you go and Derek starts teaching React and Next and all that stuff, it's all just this stuff, just used on a bigger scale. It's all functions, all loops, all variables, all that stuff. So it's the JavaScript, like this is like the hardest module because you're going into this like new world and this new way of thinking. And like either you get it or you don't. And then sometimes when it clicks, then you're like, oh man, this is great. And so then again, it's just using those same skills, building them up, practicing them, and then using them to do bigger and better things. So you've made it this far. That's very awesome. One more week of awesome, cool building, and then we're off to the races. Yeah. Derek, are you there?
Yes, sir.
You got anything to talk about JavaScript?
I mean, I think you pretty much covered it all, especially with everything you learn is going to be used when it comes to React and all that fun stuff. It's just taking this stuff and applying that, but then you just get extra cool little tools that you get to use and new methods that you'll learn that you get to put to use. So it all comes back down to this. And then everything that you learned in JavaScript as well translates to other different languages. They just have either different names or some slightly different built-in tools that they use as well. So that's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, no, that's solid, and that's something I didn't mention is yeah, this just the logic and everything and the way of thinking and the loops and all of those things. Like Derek said, all other languages have those as well. Like that is the like um, the basis of programming, right? So if you go to Python or you go to C Sharp or C++ or whatever it is, like all you got to do is learn their syntax. Like how do they, write a function, or how do they are there variables? Do they start with const, or is it like int, or do you have to go to type or whatever? But it's all the same logic, all the same ideas. So this will take you far in this crazy world of development for sure. So yeah. We got 12 minutes. We can sit and stare at each other if you want to. I mean, whatever you want. Um, if I mean, no questions, nothing at all. All good. I'm just that good of a teacher? No way. Okay. All right. Well, I'll let you have 10 minutes back. I will make a sheet with like a list of like things you need for your expense tracker, and you can start on it whenever you want. You don't have to wait. And then Wednesday, again, we'll go over a little bit of the local storage. And yeah, just any questions you have as you're building, reach out, and we'll do like kind of like a check-in Wednesday. Again, you don't have to start until Wednesday if you don't want to, but if you do, definitely you can. And then Saturday, that's what we'll mainly do is build that out and help you when you need help. So cool. All right. Well, enjoy your Saturday. We'll see y'all later.
Thank you,
Thank
Brian.
you.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.